Skylar,
Yes, sir.
I am super excited about this segment right here. Our top 5 moments from the 2024 season, of course, all sports. If you don't mind, because I told you beforehand, I've got an honorable mention. I want to hit that one first.
Okay.
That honorable mention is the Squirrel White touchdown catch against Alabama in the first half.
That was a solid catch. That was a really good catch.
That was unbelievable. Yeah. I think it was originally, was it ruled incomplete at first and they went back and reviewed it and said that it was a catch? Or did
100%, they? 100%. They might have actually ruled it a catch, but they had to review it regardless. That was an awesome catch. I wish that catch meant that we won the game. Unfortunately, we kind of imploded in the second half. Misty tunes in. She says, hey, that sponsor that you just mentioned, Auto Asbestos, we've used them. Absolutely, we have. Doing home restoration work. That's what we do, and he is a big ally for us. Facebook's popping, guys. Definitely enjoy you guys tuning in, and we're about to discuss the top 5 moments in this academic year, which is basically football season, basketball season, and then baseball, softball season. What are y'all's top moments? And you can't bring up the natty. That's the kicker, right? So he brings up the Squirrel White touchdown catch over Alabama. I think that first half against Alabama was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But like I said, that second half performance was not what we were looking for, but it's okay. It's okay. We were at Alabama. Hopefully we can return serve here at home this year. But, man, I'm going to start with number 5. I'm going to work my way up the list. And my number 5 on the list has got to be the dark mode revenge game on USC Junior, a.k.a. South Carolina. Just that whole game. The aura of it, if you want to put, in today's terms, but just the moment the fighter jets flew over that stadium and we were watching from outside the stadium that night, but just a complete butt whooping from start to finish. And, if I had to narrow it down, Kamal Haddon's pick 6 to really set the tone and put the game away per se. That's top 5 moment for me. So I put that at number 5.
Yeah, that's a very good moment. And all of these are going to be good moments.
Oh, yeah. I hope so.
So my number 5 is going to be when we were first introduced to Dalton Connect. And the only reason this is not higher on my list is because it was a preseason game. You've got the Dalton Connect steal going coast to coast and just one hand slamming it against Michigan State in the charity game for Maui. Unbelievable. That's when DK got on the map, and it was history from there.
You know what's crazy about DK? So we got to go watch the Florida game in Neyland, right? It was like a watch party.
Yeah.
And that game was terrible. I don't want to talk about the game. That was top 5 worst moments. But I got to take some photos with some of the players from the baseball and the basketball team. And we were going through some of the pictures, man, and I had no idea. But Dalton Connect is in those pictures, dude. Had no idea who he was. And my mom's like, who's that player? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, how do you not know? You follow the team so good. And I'm like, I don't know who he is. Like, I don't remember. Like,
well, you know him now.
I know. And so, but now I can say I took a picture with him, but like, I had no idea at the time that we took the photo who that kid was. But I just, I had to ask if he was on the football team or the basketball team or whatnot. And, but no, that was kind of a cool moment. That for me at least, going back through those photos, because I was looking for the Cal Stark photo that we took with Cal Stark.
Yeah,
and I'll be darned if I didn't run across that basketball team photo. It was Kai Ziegler and Dalton Connect and Triple J and whatnot. So
yeah, and before we forget, a shout out to Dalton Connect, who went 17th overall in the
LA Lakers.
Yeah, in the NBA draft to the
Did you
LA
see
Lakers,
his jacket?
Man. Dude, his jacket was awesome. He had his accolades. Yeah, he had his accolades on one side on the inside, and then the other side, of course, repping the Tennessee.
But the back of his jacket was like his actual jersey that was sewed into the jacket. It was the back of his jersey if you looked at it closely.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
Yeah, it said DK, or it had Connect and then his number 3. And then like if you looked at the material, it was the actual jersey that was on the back of his jacket. His jacket was clean.
That's awesome, man.
It was Gucci. And, the reporter had to say that. But no, shout out to DK, man. He's going to a good team. I'm not a big LeBron fan. But
Me either.
I think LeBron's a good guy, and I think he's one of those guys that could definitely teach him a lot, and it may be the best thing for him.
Yeah, and see, I'm not happy about him going to the Lakers because I'm not a professional sports fan. I'm a college guy.
Yeah, me too.
But if I was to root for a NBA team, it is the Boston Celtics because I loved back when it was Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, the big three out there. That's when I started liking the Celtics. So I'm not a bandwagoner because they won a title this year. For all of you, they're going to say it. No, I've liked the Celtics since then, which means I'm not a Laker fan. So, but no, really happy for DK.
I'm a DK fan, and I think that's how a lot of people feel. So we got a lot of people tuned in on Facebook. We appreciate you guys. We're going through our top 5 moments of the academic year, basically starting at football season. What was your top 5 moment in the 23-24 seasons? Feel free to comment. Say what your favorite moment was. As we just started our list at number 5. I guess I'm going to keep the train rolling at number 4, and that is going to be the basketball sweep of Alabama. I think that was a really big moment considering the SEC race, and then also considering how far Bama went. They had their first Final Four. We had our first Elite Eight since
2009 or 2011, one of those 2 years.
Couldn't remember when Bruce Pearl did it. But anyways, so no, that was a big moment for me. Obviously, the rivalry there between Bama and Tennessee is always huge. And being whooped in the football field the way we were in that second half, it was nice to come back and beat them twice in the basketball court.
Yeah, and the way that you beat them the first time was incredible. But the stakes that were on the line in the second game, because that was part of the time where Tennessee was facing gauntlet after gauntlet after gauntlet that ended up leading to them winning the SEC regular season.
It's got to be one of the toughest 2-week, 3-week stretches in basketball history. And Rick Barnes literally went like 4-1 in that 2-week stretch, or 3-1.
Yeah, and that one loss was to Kentucky at the end when we had already clinched it. So I mean, it didn't even matter at that point.
No, it was awesome. So that was my number 4.
Yep. So that's a great moment as well. My number 4, I'm going back to the gridiron. Jalen Wright, the opening touchdown run against Georgia, which ended up being the highest moment of the game and the only moment of the game against Georgia. But yeah, Jalen Wright, first play of the game, breaks off the 75-yard touchdown run, and I think he was only touched at the line of scrimmage, and then just the breakaway speed afterwards, man, it was unbelievable. That is my number 4 moments from this past season.
I think that's got to be one of his biggest moments too as a player, because that pretty much signed your NFL contract in the draft. Like,
yes,
not just the run in the moment against Georgia, it was the way he was able to outrun the defensive backs who had an angle on him and still couldn't catch him. Like, that was a difference maker. And obviously he did well in the pro day and in the draft or combine or whatever leading up to the draft, but that you can't teach that. I mean, he just outran the players, and that was a big moment. That was the only moment of that game.
And not only the way that he broke away, but he saw the hole and immediately hit it too.
Oh yeah,
and that's something that in the previous years he had not done. So the development from last year to this year to be able to do that, the vision right there that shows the growth that he had. And yeah, you're 100% correct. That signed his NFL contract. We knew at that moment, Jalen Wright's not coming back.
No chance. Guys, we got a lot of people tuned in on the YouTube, on Facebook. Oh, there we go. Finally, somebody chimes in. There it is. Jeremy Allen Jones says James Pierce Jr. pick 6 in the bowl game is one of his top 5 moments.
That's a great moment too.
I didn't even think about the bowl game, bro. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I didn't either. But.
Hey, Pierce in general, though, is a top 5 moment. I mean, that kid, his blow-up season, and now he's being listed as one of the top draft picks coming up next year. Now, obviously, we got a long way to go to get there, but what an amazing season he had. But, yeah, man, James Pierce Jr., pick 6, because it shows you that he can do it all, right? He's always green light on the edge as far as rushing the quarterback, but him being able to cover the flat, pick that ball off and take it to the house. That was pretty special. I have to agree with him on that. I'm going to move on to my number 3. And this one is awesome because I was there in person. My third best moment from the 23 football season was D. Williams stop the punt against A&M on the half-yard line. And then very next, 3 plays going 3 and out, I don't know, about a 49-yard punt return, which ended up being the game winner. That 5 minutes of gameplay was just an absolute baller of a moment from D. Williams, and that's got to be a top 3 moment for me. So I got it at number 3 because that place was rocking, dude.
And that's another good one as well that I didn't think about, even though I should have, because that's the moment that everybody was playing back before Tennessee beat beat Texas A&M. See, you got me doing it now in the national championship game.
Sorry, my bad. That's on me.
No, but that's a great moment. I would have loved to have been there for that right there. I mean, like you mentioned, just the stop at the 1 yard line, and then 3 plays later. Sorry, my dog's in the background.
No, you're good.
3 plays later, he returns, like you said, what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So yeah, that was an awesome series of plays there. My number 3 is also a series of plays.
Okay,
and I'm going back to DK against Auburn. It was during his stretch where he scored like 20-something points, in which he scored more points than the entire Auburn team in that like 8-minute stretch. Comes down to court, gets a one-on-one with Janai Broom, and knocks down a deep 3 in his face. Next possession, gets the ball in the exact same spot. Little jab step, cut to the middle, goes right down the lane, 2-hand throw down. The pandemonium that went through Thompson-Boling Arena after that series of plays was unreal. That is my number 3 moment from this past year.
I love that moment because, one, I mean, it was just like, his ability mode was unlocked. I mean, it was, and then you look over because they always panned it over to Bruce Pearl.
Yeah.
And while he was going off, you could just see Bruce like,
what do we do?
Exactly. It was like, he's just good. Like there's nothing we can do. And that felt really good. That was a really good moment. And again, an Auburn game in which meant a lot. Dude, we were talking about a basketball season that one game separated, I think, 5 teams from being first place.
Yeah.
So it was awesome to do that against Auburn and get that win. And of course, DK doing DK things. And that's why he went. Look, Lakers got to steal, brother. There's no way he should have dropped down to 17. But I was telling you, like I said, look, the further he drops, the better situation he's going to be in. Now, I don't know about the Lakers situation. They didn't have a great season, but I know it's a lot better than some of these other situations like the Spurs. Not a good team right now. They're kind of in a rebuild mode. But either way, no, it was a great moment. And it was a moment here in Knoxville, kind of like my A&M moment with D. Williams. So that's a pretty good one. I like that one. So we're going to move right along to number 2. SEMO's 3 home run game against Kentucky at Kentucky to help secure the series win.
Yeah.
That's got to be one of the biggest moments that for him solely, like just take over the game, which he's done multiple times, obviously. We got one. He was on the track. He said SEMO's cycle against FSU. Yes. And I'm going to tie that in with my number 2 because it's just SEMO in general. But SEMO's cycle against FSU, but SEMO's 3 home run game against Kentucky as well because of what that game meant, right? It helped get you a game closer to Kentucky. It got you the head-to-head over Kentucky. And then it just sets you up to be the number 1. I mean, think about what would happen if he didn't come through in that game because that was a game in which it was very close. I think it was like 11-8 or I don't know. It was a very high-scoring game. But SEMO taking over. It was kind of like the domino effect. Like I felt like that's exactly what started this run for Tennessee in the postseason. And without that game, without that moment, Kentucky's the sole leader, right? They win the outright regular season. That means they're number 1 seed going into the tournament. That means they're arguably probably the number 1 team going into the NCAA tournament because they were the number 2 seed, if I'm not mistaken, going into the tournament.
They were the number 2 overall seed.
So that game, that moment was monumental to getting that NCAA national championship in the baseball team, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a huge moment, not just for SEMO, but for the season in general, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have turned out with the same results with Tennessee winning and all,
Right.
I mean, who knows? It might not have turned out the exact same if Tennessee loses that game. The rest of the season might have, I'm not going to say gone downhill, but you might not have seen the rest of the season play out the way that it did if you don't win that game. So yeah, absolutely great moment there. And Jeremy actually hit my number 2, but I'm not just going to focus on the cycle. I'm gonna do the entire game in general because you've got the cycle that SEMO hit for. You've got the comeback. I mean, you're down 7-1, I believe, at one point in that game, or 7-2, something like that. And then the 9th inning comeback in general. You could have a top 5 moment list from the 9th inning comeback. I mean, you get the Kavares Tears triple. Then, of course, you got Dean Curley with the sac fly there. Then you got the SEMO double down the line. The Blake Burke single up the middle that ties the game. The Billy Amick single that kept it going. And then, of course, the Dylan Dreiling walk-off. I mean, just the entire game in general makes my number 2 on the list.
Well, my number 1 was the FSU comeback, but I'm going to change it now because I rooted for this dude since the beginning before. I think he was kind of living in the shadows, even though he wasn't. But my number 1 for top moment is just Dylan Dreiling. And I'm not just talking about the College World Series performance because that dude's been clutch all year. That dude has been whenever you think that he wasn't important, just go back and look because that dude was always there in the big moment. If he had a home run in a game, a lot of times he had 2 home runs in the game. We mentioned that in a podcast earlier in the season that Dylan Dreiling seems to hit his in multiples, right? Sometimes he goes cold, doesn't hit a home run, but he's always good for a base hit, though. I mean, he doesn't try to do too much, and but in the moment when you needed him the most, that kid was absolutely clutch. I mean, think about the 3 home runs in the 3 games in the World Series finals. Think about the 2-run shot. I think I've seen this that all 3 of the home runs in the finals came in the 7th inning, and they were 2-run home runs. Yep. Like it was like, why would you even pitch to this kid in the 7th inning? Don't do it. But even the walk-off against Florida State, him getting that. I mean, man, just the kid is a star, and unfortunately, probably won't be coming back to Tennessee next year. But he deserves everything that's coming his way.
Oh, yeah, and whoever gets him in the draft, because I'll go ahead and tell you, and it's not a knock on Dylan Dreiling. It is he's not going to go as high as, say, a Blake Burke or a Kavares Tears or something like that. You know, I would say arguably Dylan Dreiling is a better hitter than Kavares Tears. Now, Kavares might be a little bit better athletically and in the field and stuff like that, which I think is why some teams are going to like Dylan Dreiling or going to like Tears a little bit better than Dreiling. But as far as an overall hitter, I think Dylan Dreiling is a better hitter, but I think he's going to be teams.
Yeah, I to that point, I think this is going to sound weird because Dylan Dreiling was hitting the long ball, but I think Tears has a lot more power.
I agree.
But Dylan Dreiling just doesn't try to do too much. But now he hits home runs, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying like the ball coming off of Tears' bat is just different, almost like a Blake Burke feel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like at the moment that Tears, when he hits a home run, it's almost like I can call it before the camera even changes. I'm like, yeah, that one's gone. Like, and Dreiling has that pop, but just not near as much because, like I said, he doesn't try to do too much. And I think that's the separator, I think, a little bit between Tears and Dreiling. Tears is a great hitter, don't get me wrong, but I do think he has kind of a little bit more of a wilder swing to his play.
And to your point about the power from Kavares Tears, there's some of his home runs this past season that when it comes off the bat, I'm like, there's no way. It's just a fly out to the outfield, and lo and behold, somehow that ball gets over the fence. I'm like, how? How did that one get over? But man. But my number one moment is the Hunter Inslee slide at home plate, because that right there ended up being
winning it.
The difference maker in the game. And talking about Kavares Tears and Dylan Dreiling there, you had the Dylan Dreiling home run earlier in the inning that barely cleared the wall. When it was off the bat, you're like, maybe I think it's just going to be a fly out, but somehow it gets out. Kavarius Tears got every single stitch of that baseball, and it was off the wall. Now, granted, it was the dead center field, like 408 feet at that point. But how does that ball not go out? And Dylan Dryling does. So
I tried to sew it up, but like frame by frame, it just wouldn't let me do it. But I swear that ball hit the yellow stripe on the fence. I mean, it was at the top of the fence. And Miss Allen, Karen Allen tunes in and says, yes, like that is the moment. Jeremy tunes in and says, Tears is my boy. He's got that dog in him. You dang right. Funny story about my parents, and I appreciate them tuning in tonight. My dad actually ordered some jerseys after they won the Super Regional and was nervous. He was a nervous wreck because he got SEMO from a mom, and then he got himself a Tears jersey, the dark out jersey, blacked out, whatever you want to call it. But he was a nervous wreck because, dude, those jerseys came in the Monday of the championship game of the series.
Oh, man.
But they came in for the game, dude. I mean, he was like, man, I ordered these things like 2 weeks ago. Where are they at? But they did come in, and I just felt like you talk about a moment when you know you won.
Yep.
It was the mail USPS when they delivered the mail on Monday morning. When them jerseys were there, I'm like, all right, this is meant to be, brother. They're going to be wearing. And it was kind of funny because when they took a picture next to each other, they said this is what FSU fans and Texas A&M fans are doing, and it said crying, and then it said more tears because that's their jerseys. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of funny, but anyways, no, that was a great moment, man. That slide, which will be talked about forever, because honestly, that was a moment which was going to be talked about regardless, but it was one of those things where it went from being like the nail in the coffin to being the actual game deciding play.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of helped pump Hunter Ensley's stock a little bit, the fact that it ended up being the winning play. But when my cousin sent me a text after that slide, he said, dude, I've never seen a juke move in baseball. And I'm like, welcome to Tennessee, baby.
Yeah, and he played football at Huntington too, and
he did, and he was a baller, by the way. You see some of his stats?
Yeah. Come to find out, I didn't realize this at the time, but I mean, it makes sense. So, Cornersville, in the 2 years that their football team made it to the state finals, they had to go through Huntington, and Hunter Ensley was on, I think, both of those teams that Cornersville ended up beating to make it to the state finals. So, it's pretty cool to find that out. Didn't know who he was at the time, but I definitely know who he is now. But yeah, he was an absolute baller in football, and man, he came on as one of those clutch players in the College World Series as well. It seemed like at any point that Tennessee needed a hit or needed a base runner, he was there to deliver.
He batted dang near 500 for the series finals. I mean, I think he was right around 350 for the whole World Series. I mean, just an absolute great week and a half, 2 weeks for Hunter Ensley, and another guy that you wouldn't necessarily thinking would come up big the way he did. And we're really going to sit here and not talk about the two catches in the outfield, one by Hunter Ensley and one by Kavarius Tears. And Hunter Ensley, literally, they showed it for the rest of the week about his eye black staining the wall, and they never cleaned it off. I mean, that mark was there the entire week, and that was a cool story. I hate that he got hurt a little bit, but it was awesome to see him come back for the final game and really kind of put on a show for us.
Yeah. What about his comment at the celebration? He said, maybe Tony will put an eye black smear out there in the outfield to kind of remind me that we won it all in Omaha. So.
Dang right, man. So, all right, we had a lot of people tuned in on Facebook and YouTube here. We had, I think, 13 people tuning in. That's got to be a record for the live show. But last chance for you guys to comment on the greatest moment from the 23-24 seasons for Tennessee. This is your last chance before we move on. And but man, just let's recap. Football team, Citrus Bowl champions, 9-4 season. Awesome start.
Yeah.
You had the basketball teams. Obviously, the Lady Vols finished, I think, 4th or 5th in the SEC. Made it to the round of 32, which was kind of a disappointment. And that's why Kelly Harper ended up getting let go. And so now we have a change in the guards there. But you had the basketball team, on the other hand, make it to the Elite Eight. They won the regular season. They did go one and done in the SEC tournament, but they made it to the Elite Eight to kind of make up for it, where you had some of your competing teams, competitors from the SEC who went one and done in both.
Kentucky.
All
sorry.
right. So,
Sorry.
My bad. That was unprofessional. But anyways, so very, very solid moment. Kind of help bring Rick Barnes to the top, right? Because he's always been compared to Bruce Pearl, right? When is he gonna pass? Get to the Elite Eight, maybe even make a Final Four. And I think he finally did that this year. Rick Barnes, in my opinion, is one of the greatest to coach at University of Tennessee in basketball history, in my opinion. And yes, it's a little biased, but it is what it is. And then you turn it over to the spring, and man, I tell you what, it was a Vols dominant spring. You had the softball team win the SEC regular season. Unfortunately, got put out in the Super Regionals by Alabama. Ugh. But man, that just goes to show you where the SEC is right now in all these sports, and man, they're very, very good. But then baseball, on the other hand, putting the cherry on the cake, on the top of the cupcake, whatever you want to call it. Winning it all, dude. I mean, sweeping the entire NCAA Division I, everything you can sweep, right? They won the SEC regular season. They won the SEC tournament. They obviously won the regional, super regional to get to the NCAA tournament or the College World Series. And then they lost, the one game to A&M at the first of and they even lost to Evansville, honestly. But they still won. They came through, and like I mentioned to you, every time we get to a game 3, man, I'm very confident in who we had. So, Karen just commented, said, like Peyton said, this is just the beginning, a lot more to come. And it's not just Peyton saying that, which kind of gets me a little excited. I mean, think about what Drew Beam said in the celebration. He said he's very grateful and honored. Obviously, Drew Beam's a local kid and grew up a Tennessee fan, and he said, look, I'm awesome. It feels awesome to be able to bring back one of the, the first championship in baseball history. And he said that, look, football is going to do it in the fall. And you're starting to kind of feel that buzz around town. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the football has got a lot of expectations. And I think the baseball winning the Natty actually added some pressure to the football team.
Yeah, but it also gets all the fans excited, and it should get these other players from the other sports excited as well. So
yeah, absolutely. But top 5 greatest moments.